In this week's episode, we talk about price rises, business coaches, and the year of Jubilee. Welcome to episode 7 of Business Greenhouse TV. Excited this week, we have a brand new venue for the week. We've got all our clients in for a day, so we've got the big boardroom. I'm going to be teaching them how to systemize their business, how to leverage themselves out of their business so they have more time to work on it, to scale it up super quickly. So that's what the day ahead of us today is like, so I'm excited about that. I've got some other really good news. Some of you prefer to listen to a podcast rather than watch a video. And so soon, very soon, we're going to have the Business Greenhouse TV podcast available through iTunes. So yesterday we submitted it to iTunes, so it's going through the approval process now. And then very soon I'll be able to tell you and give you a link to start to download the audio version for those of you that prefer audio over video. So I have both streams happening all of the time. I just want to say, before we get into this week's show, a big thank you for those that are watching the show. So this is our 7th week. In the 6 weeks that we've put out, we've had well over 6,000 views of the show across our platforms of Facebook and YouTube. And so, I understand you're full on busy, you've got lots to do, but you're taking the time out to watch this show and hopefully implement what you're learning. And so I just wanted to say from me to you, a massive thank you for taking the time. It's the oxygen that makes me want to keep doing these shows is when I see you watching it and commenting and so forth and sharing. So thank you from me to you. So let's get into the show. Michelle, what is our first question?
Ari Dannenberger asks, when should you increase your price and how should you let your clients know?
Ari, great question. Now let me give Ari a shout out. Lions Pest Control around Brisbane. Doing a great business. His tagline is an assassin for hire. So he's got a great business going on there. So the question is, when do you increase your prices and how? My favorite way to do this, I think there's 2 ways you can go. You can either go right back to every client and carte blanche a price rise, and that's okay as long as you understand that some are going to leave you in that process. Okay, some are on the edge of leaving anyway in any business, and a price rise will give them the ammunition to just go and find somebody else. So if you were to run your numbers, you'll probably find out you're better off anyway with a small price rise to the 90% and losing the 10%. Okay, but there is a slightly different way to do it. What you can do is you can just increase your prices from this day forward with new clients. So from an accounting perspective, you have 2 different prices, which can be easy to manage or not, depending on the system that you're using. But if you got higher prices from here on in, doesn't offend anybody. And then when you get full, you're busy, you've got a lot of work on, then you start to trade up your customers. So you go back to the ones on the old price list and you invite them to join the new price list. And if they don't, it doesn't matter because you've got all these new customers on the higher price. So you go through a process of only doing it with the new ones, and then when you're full, trading the old ones up to the new ones. And if they won't join the new price list, you let them go and you go find a new customer on the new price list. Then over time, what you end up with is a whole bunch of customers on your new price rise, okay? So you can do it either way. Just be mindful that there is a fallout. There will be customers that leave if you do a carte blanche price rise across all of your customers. That's okay because you'll probably pick up the profit with the 90% that stay, but just bear in mind you will lose customers. So depending on where you are, if you don't have many customers, you probably don't have that luxury. If you've got a bunch of customers, you probably have the luxury, okay? But there's 2 different ways that you could go about it. My preferred way is a new price from today forward and trade up my customers over time because you generally don't lose any customers doing it that way. Great question. Today's show brought to you by Twinings Pure Green Tea, which is good for today. Michelle, what is question number 2?
Greg Bustle asks, at what stage of business should you consider using a business coach?
Greg, great question. So at what stage should you consider using a business coach? Interesting question considering a large portion of our services, are business coaching. And I guess I'm going to answer it in a way that you may not expect. When should you take on a business coach? Never. Never should you take on a business coach. Let me explain what I mean. So 9 years we've been doing this thing, business coaching, consulting, mentoring, whatever kind of bag you want to put it in. For 9 years we've been doing this. And I've worked out that pure business coaching doesn't work. Now that's going to be sacrilege to some business coaches out there, okay? But run with me. Pure business coaching doesn't work. But if I looked at consulting, and I'll tell you the difference in a minute, pure consulting doesn't work. Let me tell you what I mean. Pure business coaching by nature is to draw the answers out of you, using questions to get the answers so that you realize it for yourself. Consulting, on the other hand, is to give you the answers, and the trap with that is you learn nothing. Because I do it all for you, you don't learn how to replicate that process ever again. But business coaching, drawing the answers out, is excellent, but what if the answers aren't in there? Then it's impossible for me to draw them out. In my experience, there's times when I need to coach my clients and draw them out. There's times when I need to consult and give them the answers because they don't have them. I've got them through my repertoire of knowledge and experience. They don't have them. If I keep trying to draw it out and it's not in there, they're going to get frustrated and I'm going to get bored. So sometimes we need to be a business coach. Sometimes we need to be a consultant. So I think that's what you want to be looking for. You want to be looking for the kind of coach, consultant, mentor that knows how to do the difference between pure business coaching and pure consulting, knowing when to draw it out and when to give you the answers. And if you can find that person, then the answer to your question of when should you do it is yesterday. And if you can't do it yesterday, today. Great question, Greg. All right, word of the week. We're going to go to the Old Testament now, one of my favorite places to go. I think we spend too much time in the New Testament, which is very inspiring, but there's a lot of absolute gold in the Old Testament that tends to be forgotten. So we're going to go back there. We're going to go to Leviticus 25, starting at verse 8. Now this is the year of Jubilee, okay? And we're in that now, so that's right. It's very topical. We're in the year of Jubilee. And it's a very exciting time to be alive. But I just want to pick up on something super, super practical that God said. See, in this stage, during Deuteronomy and Leviticus, God gives the most super, super practical instruction on how best humanity can work together, okay? And here's just one of those. So Leviticus 25:8, and it's the year of Jubilee. Count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 times 7 years, so that the 7 Sabbath years amount to a period of 49 years. 7 sevens are 49. Then have the trumpet sound everywhere on the 10th day of the 7th month on the Day of Atonement. Sound the trumpet through your land. And then so it goes on a little bit further. So that's the concept. Every 7 sevens, we have a party in the 50th year, and it's the year of Jubilee. Go down a little bit further, and it tells us how to handle debt and borrowing. If you sell land to any of your own people or buy land from them, do not take advantage of each other. You are to buy from your own people on the basis of the number of years since Jubilee, and they are to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. So let me put it to you this way. We have a system now where debt upon debt upon debt upon debt upon debt is no problem. The US owe $19 trillion, 90 if you include unfunded liabilities. Australia, the numbers aren't quite the same, but as a percentage, we're heading in the same direction, okay? God gave us a system where debt cannot get out of control. God gave us a system whereby every 7 you count off, you send back your slaves, you send back your hired hands. Every 49 years, 50th year, you give back the land that you borrowed. And basically what that is, that's like resetting the debt clock. That's making everyone's debt zero and starting again, so it can never get out of hand. Every 50 years, you go back to zero, you send everybody in, start again. But how do you borrow? See, you could borrow land, but the price you paid was determined by the amount of years left until the end of the cycle when you had to give it back. So you paid less for some land closer to the year of Jubilee because you only had 1, 2, 3 years to harvest it versus right back at the 7 years of that cycle. So how do we put that into a modern day context? That's the way God's told us to do it. Now, back then it was land and slaves and staff, okay? Now it's running down to the local bank and getting credit cards and debts and things like that. Debt is not a sin, and I want to make that really clear. Debt is not a sin, therefore lots of debt is not a sin, okay? That's the baseline. But as much as it's not a sin, it's also not always a smart strategy. So I believe there's got to be times when we use debt, but there's also got to be times when we pay it down and we get ourselves back to a point, where we're not leveraged too high. And then ultimately, we need to get to a point where we have zero debt would be ideal, because then, the borrower is slave to the lender. So we want to make sure that our goal has to be zero debt. But if you want to use debt in the meantime, you don't want to be leveraging yourself to 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%, or even beyond that at some times, okay? So there'll be periods when you use debt, but the trap is that it doesn't stop, it keeps going. You've got to have a period where you acquire debt, but that has to stop, and you've got to go through a period where you pay it down and you get your debt levels really low with the ultimate goal of getting them to zero. I love how practical the scriptures are when they talk to us about things like debt and how to control ourselves, and we can take something that was written 5,000 years ago and make it applicable today. Love this episode, highly practical. Send me your questions. I'll put an email here for you. So email me on this email. Email me there with your business question and I'll make sure we answer it on the show. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.